Hi all, Wind here. So today's video I wanted to cover a little bit about clones, but essentially how we could preserve data in clones, how we could exclude data, and additionally how we could use cleanup scripts and what they are. For this one, it will be very difficult to kind of demonstrate the end result because I'm working on my PDI, so I don't have two instances to show. But I'll just go through the theory because a lot of this is pretty simple. And you could essentially do it in your development, but just knowing what it is and how it works, I think that's the main part of this. So what I'm going to start with is I'm in the clone admin console right now. So you can see here, I can see if I've got any clones that have been scheduled or to schedule, and I can request a clone. Before we go into requesting clone, what it looks like essentially, just want to kind of confirm what is cloning. So essentially, you copy everything from one database or from one instance to another. So this is primarily used during after a release. You want to get production cloned over to your staging tables, or every so often you want to clone your production over your subprod instance, so you have a fresh clean instance in terms of as close as to production as possible. So when you develop, there's a reduced risk of things not working in production. You can roll back a clone and cancel a clone, and essentially what we really do want to go over is clone profiles. So this is where we can create a clone profile which would allow us to do quite a few things to allow us to keep or retain some of the data we want to in the instances. So I'll go over that in a moment. What I do want to do before that is show you what the request clone would look like and just talk you through that configuration and what that would be. Okay, so we get this page, and essentially you want to pick your source instance. From which source, which instance are you looking to get the clone from, and then which target are you looking to clone over? That's essentially how it would work. And as mentioned, I don't have a target instance because of PDI, but I can select target instance once I've set that up. And then I can select my clone profile. So you can see here there's a system profile. We're going to select that for now. I can then select my schedule start time. I think that will auto-populate once you submit it. Or probably once we select that. So I just go over definitions. So these were some of the things I was looking to go through. So exclusions, preservers, and cleanup scripts essentially. So essentially exclusions, if we actually go to definitions, I believe there's a good way to see it here. So exclusions kind of list the tables that should not be copied during a system clone. So by default, the system includes tables for logging, auditing, notifications, workflow context, and license usage. So those tables are big and also not too essential in a subprod instance, especially logs. You don't need that in subprod instances. You want to see logs live, but if they've already occurred, it's fine. But also log tables are huge, so you don't want to carry those over for performance reasons as well. License usage are different for each instances, so and you could have requirements in your organization for different tables to exclude for whatever reason, like HR case data shouldn't be cloned down because of sensitivity, as an example. And then we have preservers. So preservers on the target instance should be kind of protected from being overwritten. So if you have any data that you want to keep, and a really good one is if you've got integrations in production and subprod instances, most of the time you would have a subprod integration, i.e. an integration between two subprod instances, an external app subprod instance and the subprod instance of ServiceNow. At that point, the credentials are different from a production instance in comparison to the subprod instance. So you probably want to retain or preserve those credentials within that instance every time you clone over, so it doesn't affect the integration, or you don't have to kind of re-establish credentials every time. So that might be one example. A cleanup script. So these are scripts that you can automatically run on the target instance once the data has been cloned over. So one example I've seen is as previously mentioned, you might have a requirement where you want to exclude HR case because of sensitivity. However, we still need the data there for whatever reason, but we don't want to include personal data. So there might be a cleanup script where we do actually pull in the HR cases, but then we clean up all the personal information, such as who the caller is and any sensitive information we require to. Technically, one thing I've experienced with this is even if you bring those kind of data across and then clean up, it's still a form of breach because the data has already entered the system. So there's just one thing to keep in mind with some of these cleanup scripts when you're looking at sensitive data. But that's essentially what the functionality of cleanup script is, to run that script right after the clone to do any cleanup or any manipulation of the data to keep it within the instances is required. So how would we set these up? So the first thing we actually need to do is we need to create a clone profile, because the clone profile that exists within ServiceNow, this one here, is not editable, and this is out of the box. You cannot change this. You basically need to create a new profile if you want to edit anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new profile, and I'm just going to call this custom PDI profile. Okay. And then again, I could pick my target instance. So you could have different clone profiles for different target instances, which is nice. I'm gonna make it default, and I'm just gonna there's a bunch of options here that you can essentially do. I'll keep these ticked for now, and I will do that as well. So I just want to, okay, and what you will see is there's already been a bunch of exclusion preservers and cleanup scripts added, and this is from the default system profile. Essentially just added this to the default profile now, and essentially what I want to go ahead and do is let's create a preserver. So I want to show how we can create a preserver. So first thing I'm going to do here is just go to data preservers. Okay, so preserve data. There we go. Okay, so you can see here, and I'm going to create a new one. And essentially, what I am going to do is I'm going to create one that saves this credential. So this basic auth configuration that I've created, this record here, I want to essentially retain this whenever I clone over this instance. This should remain. So the way I would do that is let's just call this just give it a name. Okay, and then let's put the table name here. I think it's basic. Yep, there we go. And then we could add a condition. So if we want to save the whole table and all the records in that table, we can leave it as is. Just for now, I'm just gonna say if the name is one-off, so we can make a filter of it. But yeah, essentially you could just preserve the whole table. So if there's no filter, it will preserve all the records in that table. So I'm just gonna submit this, and that should be done. So now if I try and search for this table, let me just do that again. So I just do this. Yeah, so I can see that this exists. And that's really all I wanted to show. because I have been asked how we could do that going forward, and that's pretty much it. It's very basic to set up. Of course, please do test it, but the best way to essentially test this is just um, clone over an instance to your subpod and do your changes, and then see if it's worked or not, and then if it hasn't worked, just back up your changes, because if they haven't worked, then essentially they would be cloned over. But then you can reapply your update set, make your configuration changes, and then try to do the clone again to see it. So if you're looking at creating those preservers or excludes, you add those to the clone profiles, you just clone over again, and you can kind of test it and see if it's actually retained what you wanted and excluded what you wanted. So I hope that's helped answer some of your questions. Please let me know if you need any more around this. I'm happy to help. Thank you. Bye.